Good, nope, minimize this. Good afternoon, everybody. I am Dawn Marshall, and I am the director of the Symposium University Transportation Center. We are a 5-site transportation center with the University of Iowa as the lead. We also have the University of Central Florida, the University of Massachusetts at Amherst, University of Puerto Rico at Mayagüez, and University of Wisconsin. We are a Tier 1 University Transportation Center. These are grants that are funded by the U.S. Department of Transportation. And we run a grant in 2013 and another in 2016. It's a very competitive process to win these grants. And so we are very proud that we've had 2 grants together. Yeah. So one of the really exciting things about SaferSim is the amount of collaboration and non-traditional disciplines who are involved. A lot of UTCs involve a lot of engineering, and that is not a bad thing. But we also have learned that we can bring a very diverse set of point of views to transportation safety problems, and this benefits us a great deal. So one of the unique things about our center is the amount of collaboration, both across consortium sites, but also within university departments. And on your right, you can see a short list. It's not an entire list of all the different departments who have been involved in SaferSim projects in the past. And so this multidisciplinary collaboration really helps us look at problems in different ways. Our themes for the second grant are automated vehicles, connected vehicles, vulnerable road users, roadway infrastructure, and distributed simulation technology. And our goal is to use some kind of simulation technology to look at transportation safety issues in these areas. And when we were writing our proposal, what we found is when we came up with project ideas in under each of these areas, often that idea covered 2 or 3 of these areas, and that really tells us that our themes are very interconnected, and both with the themes being interconnected and then the interdisciplinary aspect of our researchers, we were able to bring many points of view into these themes. So for the 2013 grant, that was a 3-year grant. We received 3 years of funding. And over those 3 years, we funded 38 single institution projects. A single institution project is a project that is conducted at one of our 5 institutions only. The researchers are all from one institution. Now, that doesn't mean they're all from one department, but they're all from one institution. We also funded 7 multi-site collaborative projects. That's 7 projects that involved more than one of our sites. Our funding levels for the research projects were from $35K to $100K. We also funded 6 education projects across those 3 years, and those funding levels were 10K to 80K. They tended towards the lower end of that range for the education projects, 10 to maybe 25K for those, but there was one that developed a lot of technology, and so it was at a little higher end. For our new grant, the 2016 grant, we will have funding for up to 5 years. The initial year of funding came when we received notification that we'd received the grant, and we are in the middle of the first year. As part of the proposal process, we submitted project ideas for initial projects, and 3 of those are collaborative across institutions, and 5 were single institution projects. We had a session this morning that provided kickoff presentations for those 7 of those 8 projects. One institution wasn't able to be with us, unfortunately. We have recently found out that year 2 funding is available, and what that means is that we will need to kick off our RFP process. So Most people should have received the RFP. If you haven't, please send us a message and I'll get your email there. Our RFP came out Monday night. We are looking for research, education, and outreach projects. There are some project requirements. They must have a safety theme, specifically a transportation safety theme. They must use simulation technology in some way, and yet that includes driving simulators, bicycling simulators, pedestrian simulators, but it also includes micro simulation, cognitive modeling, any kind of simulation. And the PI must be a faculty member or full-time research staff. Yet we also highly encourage students to work on the project. So often, oh, Mike says he can't hear me. Let me escape out of this. Jacob, what should I do? Here?
Yeah.
Okay. This?
Chat box where the.
This one?
Yep.
Okay. No sound. Okay. Let's see. Maybe. Okay, so maybe if I pull this down, is this better? All right. Okay. So I was talking about the RFP, and let me get this maximized again. So we just released our RFP on Monday, and I was saying that the PIs must be faculty members or full-time research staff, and yet our projects are highly encouraged to include graduate or undergraduate students. And most projects have a PI who oversees the project, and yet a great deal of the work is done by students. And what we what we have found is that our students across sites also tend to collaborate. We have a symposium about once a semester, and the students get together and start collaborating, and that's a really fantastic thing. For our current RFP, the proposals will be due November 30. Award decisions will be made by February 15th. And that timeline is intended to allow the identification of students in time to start the projects in summer or fall term in 2018. So with that brief introduction to Safer Sim, I'm going to move on to our advisory board members who have been able to join us today. We'll have Dr. William Horry, Pat Hoy, Dr. Richard Mano, Lisa Schletzbaum, and hopefully Dr. Linda Boyle will be able to join us. She is in another call, and she said she thought she could get here at 10:30, so she may be popping in right at the last minute. I'm going to hand things over to Jacob and let him run the slide presentation. And so what you'll see between each speaker is a Safer Sim slide. And then we'll go to the first slide. And then if you'll just let Jacob know that you would like to advance to the next slide. And then when we get to the end of each person's slide, this slide will come up again so that we don't accidentally go too far.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to hand things over.
All right, thank you, Dawn. Okay, so let's get this set up. I think our first advisory board presenter is Bill Horry, so I am going to promote him to presenter. So Bill, you should have, I made you presenter. You will have access to the microphone if you go to the top of your Adobe Connect window.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So our test the other day was not without merit, so thank you. You can go ahead to the first slide there. So just wanted to take a minute to introduce myself to the group for those of you who don't know me. My name is Bill Horry. I'm currently the Traffic Research Group Leader at the AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety. Uh, I've been an advisory board member since the inception of the Safer Sim, so that's 2014, I believe. I have a background in psychology from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, and I've spent the bulk of my career looking at various transportation human factors issues related to visual and divided attention, human automation interaction, driver multitasking, driver distraction, as well as the calibration of skill and judgment as sort of a subclass of risk perception. And so my interests are rather broad, and so I hope that I can apply some of this background knowledge to kind of advise and guide the proposals as they come in. I'm currently the chair of the Transportation Research Board Committee on Vehicle User Characteristics. Looking forward to seeing some of you in January at the annual meeting. I'm also an associate editor of the Human Factors Journal, and so for any up and coming students that ever have any questions about the process or the journal or things like that, my email is always open, and I would welcome a discussion with you guys. You can go ahead to the next slide. I just wanted to spend a few minutes talking a little bit about our organization here, the AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety. It was founded in the late 1940s by the American Automobile Association, and really was intended to become like a research branch of that organization to address growing highway safety issues of the time. Um, it's a nonprofit organization, and so we get all of our contributions from motor clubs associated with the AAA, the Canadian Automobile Association, as well as individual sponsors as well. Go ahead. And at the core of it, our mission statement is to identify traffic safety problems, foster research that seeks solutions, and disseminate information and educational materials. So, very UTC-like in terms of our scope and our deals. Go ahead. And I also just want to highlight some of our current focus areas here at the foundation. And you'll see a lot of synergy with what the UTC is also trying to do in its latest instantiation. So we're really trying to understand the impact of emerging technologies. This includes automation, looking at vulnerable road users, whether older adults, teen drivers, novice drivers, looking at various facets of driver behavior and performance. And so within this category, we include different types of driver impairment from distraction and things like that. And we're also interested in the impact and safety of roadway systems as well, and the interaction with drivers. So go ahead. This is my last slide. And so Don asked us to kind of speculate for a moment just in terms of what we would like to see from Safer Sim. And I fear that I've not put up anything here that's going to be very earth-shattering to the audience here. Really, what I'm trying to do is really reinforce some of the things that the UTC stands for and what it's already doing. And so, as we move into kind of the second round and as well as the future round of proposals, what I would really want to reinforce is that you really try to continue the theme of doing strong works along those core themes, and really looking to leverage the strengths that the UTC holds to break new ground. And so, especially in the area of new and emerging technologies, we do see a lot of activity globally at various research institutions. And so I would really hope that the current UTC can really look to push the envelope and to do work that's unique and really pushing the envelope in ways that other organizations might not be able to do. And to do that, you really want to leverage on your strengths, which includes but are not limited to your multidisciplinary capabilities. The slide that Don showed earlier was really captured that nicely in terms of the breadth of skills and backgrounds that you guys have. And so, to the extent that you guys can capitalize that on any given project, I think will be to your advantage. The other thing that I remark upon is the the capabilities to do distributed simulation work. And we heard a little bit about that this morning. That's been a core aspect of many of the previous work that the UTC has undertaken. And it's also present in some of the planned work that's currently underway. But this is really a great capability. And to the extent that you can maximize its utility in your proposals, I think that would be a tremendous boon to the UTC outcomes. And lastly, just kind of thinking in terms of just the development of the next generation of transportation researchers. Um, and at this point relates a little bit less to the public outreach and a bit more towards kind of our internal education. I really hope that by over the course of the work that's carried out under the UTC, that we can kind of focus on fundamentals, or at least include some appreciation for fundamentals. And these are kind of really the core principles of human factors or related fields, the theory that kind of underlies some of these applied problems, because I think those are important not to overlook when we think about the next generation of scientists. We don't want them to become too theoretical in nature. We don't want them to become too applied in nature. So having a good balance is something that I think would be a tremendous advantage to the UTC as well as to the individuals that will graduate out of the UTC eventually. So with that, I'll turn it back to you guys, and thanks very much.
Thank you, Bill, for the presentation. We'll save the questions for the end. I can see you have your mic muted, so I'm just going to keep you as a presenter for now and see how the questions are at the end. But our next presenter is Pat Hoy from the Iowa Department of Transportation. Let me see if he is online yet. There he is. Okay. So Pat, I'm making you a presenter. Kind of like we practice, you'll turn that microphone on at the top.
Can you hear me now, Jacob?
Yep, we can hear you loud and clear.
Awesome.
I'm going to mute my microphone and dive down into your presentation, but go ahead and get started once I'm there.
Okay. Okay, let me start by saying I really am honored to be able to participate here today as an advisory board member. My background and career has almost entirely been spent in law enforcement. I spent 32 years as a member of the Iowa State Patrol and was fortunate enough to rise to the rank of colonel before I retired. As chief of the patrol, we continually sought ways to change driver behavior in hopes of reducing crashes. High visibility enforcement is certainly an important factor in changing driver behavior, because if there were no fear of consequences, drivers are less likely to change dangerous behavior. And that really was our role in the State Patrol. But now in my current role as the Bureau Chief of the Governor's Traffic Safety Bureau, we are focused on all aspects of traffic safety and provide funding to many different venues. We still work with law enforcement, media consultants. I'm sure many of you are aware of our old Click It or Ticket. It's an oldie but a goldie that we continue to use for public awareness. And maybe most importantly for our audience here today is the research that we fund. The projects that you are working on are certain to have significant impact on crashes, not only here in Iowa, but nationally. With driver errors accounting for 94% of fatal crashes nationally, we need to continue to seek ways to reduce and hopefully eliminate driver error. Assistance systems to counteract human error is a critical aspect of automated vehicle technology and will help drive down traffic fatalities. Your focus on vulnerable road users will certainly assist an agency like ours as we search for ways to reverse the trends of rising bicycle and pedestrian fatalities. With the next slide. Two areas that I would like to mention briefly continue to be a focus for our Bureau and many others across the country, I'm sure. In Iowa, as our baby boomers age, and sadly, yes, I'm one of them, we are looking at what point is a senior driver unable to drive. Selecting a certain age doesn't seem to be the answer, but we are looking for what research can tell us to help us determine when not to issue a driver's license. Is it reaction time, or what is going to be the determining factor? I'm not sure, but I'm hoping that through research, and this is certainly one of the things that I'm hoping that someone can take a look at for us. At the other end of the scope, at what point is a young driver ready to go on their own? What time periods need to be utilized under supervision to prepare them? One of the things that we are looking at legislatively in our state, in Iowa, is its current 20 hours of driving supervision, with 2 hours of that being nighttime driving. In our bureau, we believe that that is not sufficient, but we really don't have the research to move legislation to make the changes. When we look at the crash data, obviously it's showing nighttime driving for teens is especially critical, and yet we're only requiring 2 hours of supervised driving to get an interim driver's license. So we're hoping that through research we could provide that, when we go to a legislator, that there is a certain time period that would be required for a teen to garner those specific needs before they're able to go out on their own. And really that is part of the excitement that I have for the work that is being conducted. I've seen firsthand through the National Driving Simulator, Advanced Driving Simulator, and the university, some of the research projects that have spurred traffic safety changes, and I'm excited to be part of this because I really believe that there is still much more that can be done. And I mentioned senior drivers and teen drivers, bicycles, pedestrians, all of those that through your research and your findings will drive us as traffic safety bureaus to hopefully find solutions to ultimately reduce fatalities across the country. So with that, I once again honored to be here today and appreciate your time.
Thank you, Pat. I am going to keep you as a presenter, but make sure that your microphone's muted, just in case there are any questions at the end that you can address. But we'll move on to the next advisory board member, Richard Mano. And Rich, I think you are on. I will bump you up to presenter. Same process. So let me know if you are having any difficulties.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep, sounds good. Let me get your presentation
Great.
pulled up and we'll get started.
Okay, so I just want to say how excited I am as well to be participating, and congratulations to all the members of Safer Sim for winning a renewal of your UTC. I think your ideas for the first one were excellent, and I'm really excited to see all the plans you have this time around. My background, just so you know, I started in aerospace engineering pretty much at the University of Toronto. When I was there doing my master's, actually my bachelor's and my master's both were focused on flight simulation, both looking at physiological measures of simulator sickness, as well as doing some literature searches during my bachelor's, again on simulator sickness. So that was my heavy focus then. I switched over in 1990. I was actually at the University of Iowa from 90 to 95. I switched over to driving simulation. Had a chance to work with a lot of people who still are at the university, and really enjoyed my time there. I left to go to industry for a couple years. It's not on my chart, but in Detroit, working for Continental Tevis, looking at ABS and traction control and stability control. Then in 97, I started my own company, Real Time Technologies, and I ran that from 97 to 2015. I sold the company in 2008 to FAC Inc., which is a training simulation company based in Ann Arbor, Michigan. In 2015, I decided that I wanted to go back to academia, so I had a chance to move to the University of Leeds in the UK, which is where I am now. And so it's 6:30 p.m. My time, and I've been enjoying the day's worth of presentations, and I look forward to giving one myself at 7 o'clock my time, I think 2 o'clock yours, or 1. So next slide, or I'm in control. Okay. So definitely I have an interest in a wide variety of research. And like Bill Horry was commenting on, trying to do some fundamental work strengthening both people's understanding of simulators and also designing good human factors experiments, I think are very great goals for the UTC. From my perspective, I guess over the last 4 or 5 years, I've really been interested in trying to push forward rapid geospecific databasing techniques. I really think that this is an opportunity to allow simulation to be used in a much wider context, both in training people on their local roadways, and providing training for some that need greater assistance in how they possibly navigate and things like that. And then looking at ways to reduce the cost of effective simulators. So if we can move from really big simulators to something small that we can deploy far more, and then integrate those two things to basically provide a low cost solution to improve safety and training and help people have access to be mobile. And so in those areas, it's trying to help people in training to either get or keep their driver's license, and for people to again navigate both walking and driving. And so I really think that there's a lot of potential here to open up avenues that haven't been able to be pursued before, and really building on the technologies that are being developed now for automated vehicle research. So with that, I'll turn it back over.
All right, thank you, Rich. Let's see. We do have a question here that came in from Donald Fisher, from Don Fisher. I think we'll address the questions at the end. So I won't forget about that, Don. But our next presenter is Lisa Schletzbaum. So let me get her promoted up, and we will get going. Lisa, do you want to try talking to see how the sound is quick?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Jacob.
Can everyone hear that? Looks like it sounds good, Lisa. So let me mute myself, or no, I'll keep that unmuted so they can hear you, and then we'll dive down into the PowerPoint.
Okay, great. Good afternoon. My name is Lisa Schletzbaum. I am a civil engineer by education and experience. I graduated with a bachelor's in civil engineering from WPI in Massachusetts. I have 20 years of transportation planning, roadway and signal design, and traffic safety experience. About half of that time has been on the private side working for a consultant, and the other half has been working at Mass DOT and working on the Strategic Highway Safety Plan for Massachusetts, as well as the Highway Safety Improvement Program and managing the Road Safety Audit Program. I've completed 200 plus road safety audits, and outside of my responsibilities at DOT, I'm a 20 plus year member of WTS and ITE. I served as the WTS Boston chapter president, and I'm a member of the Technical Advisory Committee for the evaluation of low-cost safety improvements, a pooled fund study with about 46 states that are participating, and I'm a member of various NCHRP. So Jacob, if you could advance, thank you. My biggest interest lies with safe travel for all modes, and certainly participating in the 200 plus road safety audits. I think that's where we saw our greatest need was having safety for certainly pedestrians and bicyclists. And one of the biggest needs I think that we see right now in our state are the expanding use of shared use paths across the state and what those crossings look like when they intersect with the roads, whether it's mid-block or at intersections. Certainly we can do the traditional approach, analyzing what those intersections would look like of the shared use path and the roadways, and consider stop or yield for the path users, and also stop or yield or no control for the roadways. But I think it's interesting if we look at, say, bicyclists, they're using their own power to move themselves along, and the likelihood that they don't necessarily want to stop when they're using their own power to get their momentum going. So I think we could focus on some simulation between what it is that the bicyclist behavior, the pedestrian behavior at those types of crossings. Also the crosswalk education and enforcement piece. I've seen on social media posts about people using mid-block crosswalks, and here in Massachusetts, the drivers need to yield to a pedestrian in the crosswalk. And so sometimes pedestrians don't necessarily realize that there's the perception and reaction time for motorists to be able to see and perceive a pedestrian wanting to cross the road and then having adequate time to stop. And so what does that look like in a simulated environment? And are police aware of the distance that it takes for a motorist who's approaching a crosswalk to know that they need to perceive and be able to come to a complete stop? And also another area that we have interest in are when drivers are transitioning from a highway and coming to a town center, and so there's the need to slow down from highway speeds to a slower speed of 20 to 25 miles an hour through a downtown area. And are there cues that we could have to drivers in order to signal to drivers that they do need to slow down, and what that would look like? But I appreciate the diversity of the board, and I think that that is a great mix for this group, and I look forward to participating.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. We'll move on to the next one, which will be the last presentation by the advisory board members. This will be by Linda Boyle from the University of Washington. Like I said, after she is done presenting, we will have some time for any questions and answers. So Linda, I think you are on. I'm promoting you to presenter. Maybe, yes. And then Linda, you should be able to go to the top of your Adobe Connect window. There's a microphone icon. You can click that and it'll turn green, or you can click on the drop down arrow to the right and connect your microphone.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I heard you there a little bit. I'm wondering if anyone else heard it. Can you try it one more time?
Can you hear me okay now?
It sounds like we can hear you a little bit, so that's good. The microphone is connected, but it sounds like you're distant. So if you could maybe position yourself closer to the microphone, that might help.
Now. How about now?
Yeah, that's better. That's good on my end.
Okay.
I
All
think that's good. Let me dive down into the presentation. We'll get going.
Okay. Hi, my name is Linda Boyle. I'm at the University of Washington. I am professor and chair of the Industrial and Systems Engineering Department here. I also have a joint appointment with the Civil and Environmental Engineering Department, and I'm also director of the University of Washington Human Factors. And on the screen is a link to my website so that you can see all the projects that we have been working on. And there's my email and Twitter contact. There was a picture here of my students, but that's okay. You can go to the next slide. So just, so I was asked to talk about what I would be interested in for SaferSim from research, education, and outreach. So in research, given the growing interest in connected vehicles and autonomous vehicle autonomy, what are specifically the implications? I mean, I recognize that there's issues associated with autonomous vehicles, but given the focus of this particular university transportation center, I think it'd be good to focus on that, some, some shared research. Also, the face of transportation is changing in many different ways. There's a lot more multimodal shared, things like shared rides like Uber and Lett, and also other things like bike share programs that have impact on how we interact and share the road. What are, again, the safety implications? And then looking at it from how the research relates to policies, infrastructure, as well as enhanced driver education, not just for teen drivers, but for all different types of populations. And then I also think one of the really nice things about Sim is the capability to do interdisciplinary and multi-institutional studies. So maybe just what's going on with that and ways to collaborate. From an education side, it would be good to look at things like, given that there are so many people that are going, they're using driving simulators now, it's not clear that they all know how to actually specifically use a simulator to capture certain things. And then maybe, again, just for the more timeliness of issues, how to design simulators that to capture safety issues. A few years ago, Sue Chrysler, Rich Romano, put together a workshop at TRB. And perhaps, as a starting point, moving forward. And then with regards to what scenarios are available and what are possibilities to share. I actually get emails from different people about some of the studies I'm doing. I'm actually very happy to share some of my scenarios, but it would be really wonderful if there was like maybe some sort of a shopping list somewhere or a repository that would identify what is possible to share. Next slide. And then with regards to outreach, I really enjoy seeing, even though I don't participate in as many, the webinars and the newsletters. I think they're wonderful. I'm very glad that they're not. And it would also be good, kind of what I was saying related to education, to provide a forum for researchers to share data and scenarios in some meaningful way. And I recognize that this is a challenge, but I do think sorry, I spelled scenarios wrong.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Linda. I know we have some comments coming in. John Marshall said that we are planning a simulation research boot camp. That's actually our next session for the virtual symposium. So feel free to stick around and brainstorm some ideas on what we could, how we can use this boot camp to help, train people on what, how to build scenarios for the research, all the intricate details that it takes. But let me get out of the screen share quick. Well, I can stay in the screen share. Let's go to some questions. So I know Dr. Don Fisher had a question during Rich's presentation, and his question was, Rich, could the geo-specific technologies be helpful with getting infrastructure back up and running in hurricane-damaged areas? So, Rich, if you have any ideas on that or any other advisory board member, feel free to unmute yourself and take us and go ahead and answer.
Yeah, I think we've been looking at some things like this in general under our Virtuosity project, where we're trying to look at greater infrastructure issues. So I think probably from a transportation perspective, we could look at things, but also from energy distribution and things like that. There's a lot of different areas that these things could apply. Personally, I don't have any experience, and probably our team doesn't have any experience with this specific type of tragic problem and rebuilding. We've done more altering existing infrastructure, so I'd have to do some thinking and talking to people here, but love to share some ideas.
All right, thank you, Rich. So if any other board members have an opinion on that, feel free to share. We still have time for any more questions, so please, if you have any questions, write them in the chat and we will address them. I should say we want to thank all the advisory board members for coming and talking to us today. We're very fortunate to have them on our team. Kind of helps with, you can see Dawn mentioned the interdisciplinary aspect of Safer Sim, and that also extends to the advisory board. So it's nice to have expertise from different backgrounds, different locations, so we can attack these transportation safety problems from all angles.